I put a $62 brisket from Walmart into a $300 Masterbuilt electric smoker and let it run for 12 hours to find out if the internet is right about electric smokers. And the internet has a lot of opinions out there about this. You can't make real barbecue in an electric smoker. The bark won't develop. You'll never get real smoke flavor. It's basically an outdoor oven. And some of those people sound pretty convincing. So instead of arguing online, I grabbed a brisket, documented the whole cooking process from start to finish, and let the results speak for themselves. That's what this video is all about. And if you like this kind of content where I actually test stuff instead of just talking about it, hit that like button and let's get into it. But first, before we get into the cook itself, if you're new here, I make videos to help beginners get started with backyard barbecue on a weekly basis. No competition level nonsense, no recipes that require equipment most people don't own, just techniques that actually work in real backyards. So if that's the kind of channel you've been looking for, make sure you're subscribed. And before I walk you through this cook, I want to hear from you. What's the dumbest thing you've ever done trying to save your barbecue cook? I've heard about people setting alarms every 45 minutes throughout the night. One guy told me he fell asleep and woke up to a smoker that was running at 400 degrees. Drop your worst barbecue disaster in the comments. I read every single one of them, and I know you've got a story. All right, let's talk about the setup. The brisket I used was a 12-pound select grade Packer brisket. Not Wagyu, not prime, just a regular Packer from the grocery store for $62. And that was completely intentional. If I'm gonna test whether a 300 electric smoker can make a great brisket, I'm not gonna solve the problem with a $100 piece of meat. I feel like that's cheating. I wanted to test what most backyard cooks are actually buying on a Saturday morning. Now a 12-pound Packer brisket is pushing the limits of this Masterbuilt 30-inch smoker, but here's what a lot of beginners don't know. You don't have to separate the point from the flat. I left this brisket completely intact and it fit fine after trimming. So if you've been scared off by brisket because you thought you had to split it up, don't be. A whole Packer brisket can absolutely work in this smoker. Trimming is the first place beginners overthink things. You watch enough videos and you think you need a degree in meat geometry. The goal is simple. The fat cap gets trimmed down to about 1/4 of an inch, not bald, but not so thick that people are cutting off slabs of hard fat. The silver skin comes off, and any hard fat that won't render comes off too. You also want to get anything that's thin enough to burn. And that's it. Now we move on to the rub. And I'm gonna disappoint anyone expecting a secret formula here. Salt, pepper, garlic, onion powder, smoked paprika, and mustard powder. That's the whole list. No magic ingredients, no ancient family recipe, because here's the thing. Good barbecue is almost always about the technique, not ingredients. If your seasoning requires a spreadsheet, you've gone too far. Now, one of the questions I get constantly is which rub should I use on ribs? Which wood works on pork? Which sauce actually pairs well with chicken? So I put together something called the Backyard Barbecue Flavor System. It's not a recipe book. It's more of a roadmap. Different rubs, wood combinations, sauce pairings, and exactly which combinations work best for different types of meat. I spent years figuring this out, so you don't have to. And if you want to check it out, comment flavor system and I'll send you the link. All right, the brisket is trimmed. Brisket is seasoned. Now let's get it onto the smoker. My Masterbuilt electric smoker is set to 250 degrees. Hickory and pecan are loaded into the wood chip tray and the brisket goes on that side down. And my meter plus probe goes into the thickest part of the flat. And that's it. The door closes and the cook begins. Now here's where a lot of beginners immediately go wrong. The smoker is running, everything is set, and every 10 minutes, they crack the door to check out things. I just want to peek. I just want to see what's happening. And I get it. It's hard to walk away. But every time you open that door, you're losing heat. You're losing smoke. And you're making the cook take longer because the smoker has to climb back up to that temperature every single time. The Masterbuilt is doing its job. The wood chips are smoldering. The temperature is holding. Your job at this point is to leave it alone and trust the process. What's actually happening inside that smoker during the first few hours is that the surface of the brisket is drying out and forming what is going to become your bark. The smoke is bonding to the meat. The fat is slowly rendering. None of that requires you to watch it happen. It just requires time. The color coming in on a brisket in an electric smoker surprised me the first time I saw it. Most people expect it to look pale or washed out. It doesn't. It darkens. The surface tightens up, and somewhere right around the 4 to 5 hour mark, it starts looking like something you'd actually want to eat. Now let's talk about the stall, because this is the part of the cook that has ruined more first briskets than anything else. Not because something went wrong, but because the cook panics. Here's what happens when you're somewhere between hour 5 and hour 7. The internal temperature has been climbing steadily, and then it just stops. You check the thermometer, still the same number. You wait 20 minutes, the same number. You start wondering if the probe is broken. You switch thermometers, but you still get the same number. I still remember the first brisket I cooked. I was convinced something had failed. I switched probes. I opened the smoker. I poked the meat, did everything you're not supposed to do. Nothing was broken. The brisket was just doing what briskets do. Here's what's actually happening. The moisture in the meat is evaporating off the surface of the meat. That evaporation cools the brisket at almost exactly the same rate the smoker is trying to heat it up. So that temperature sits flat, sometimes for an hour, sometimes for 2 hours, sometimes longer. It's the same reason your body sweats on a hot day. It's a cooling mechanism. If your brisket is stuck in the stall right now and you're watching this video at 11 p.m. wondering what to do, take a breath. You're probably fine. At this point, you've got 2 options. You can wait it out and let the brisket push through the stall, or you can wrap it. I like to wrap mine in heavy duty aluminum foil, tight wrap, both ends are sealed. I know some people swear by butcher paper. If that's working for you, keep on doing it. I'm not here to tell you one way is the only way. Backyard barbecue has many paths to good food. But for this cook, I wanted foil because it traps more moisture, it traps more heat, and pushes through the stall faster, which matters more in an electric smoker than it does in an offset, where you're managing a much more aggressive heat. You can place this back in the smoker at 250 degrees, or like I did in this video, you can place it in the oven that is set to 250 degrees. The brisket isn't going to take on any more smoke, so the smoker really isn't needed. Whatever one you choose, it doesn't take too long for that temperature to start coming back up. By the way, if you're new to smoking meat and all these temperatures are making your head spin, I put together a free guide for cooking times and temperatures. All you gotta do is just drop 100 in the comments below and I'll send it your way. It's going to take a lot of the guesswork out of the equation for you. Now, let's talk about what most people get wrong at the end of the brisket cook. You push through the stall, the temperature is climbing again. You hit 195 and your brain says, we're almost done, but it's not. I don't care that the thermometer says 195. That number doesn't mean that the brisket is ready, because the temperature will give you a clue that the meat is done, but tenderness gives you the answer that it's done. I've had briskets finish at 200 degrees. I've had them finish at 206. I had one stubborn brisket that wasn't ready until 209. Every single brisket, it's different. That's why I don't cook to a number. I cook to feel. The test is simple. You take the thermometer probe and you slide it into the thickest part of the flat. If you feel any resistance at all, any tightness, any drag, it's not done. What you're looking for is the probe sliding in like you're pushing into warm butter. No resistance, just smooth. When you feel that, it's done. The brisket hit that point right around the 12-hour mark on the smoker, which means we're going into the rest phase. Now I know exactly what some of you are thinking. It's done. Let's eat. Sorry. No, this part matters more than people realize. When the brisket comes off the smoker or you have finished it in the oven, the next step is to remove it from the heat source. And here, just like everything else, you have options. The first is that you can take the brisket, wrap it in a beach towel, and plop it straight into an insulated box like a beer cooler. This is the swamp cooler method, and it works really well. Another option is to remove the brisket from the oven for about 30 minutes. During those 30 minutes, you set your oven to the lowest temperature. For me, that's 170 degrees. Once you have reached that temperature, you return the brisket to the oven to rest, and it stays there for at least an hour, closer to, I actually prefer 4. The first time someone told me to let a brisket rest for multiple hours, I thought they were messing with me. Why would I do that? I just spent 12 hours cooking. It smelled amazing. I was hungry. Are you telling me that I have to wait longer? But here's what's actually happening during the rest. All those juices got pulled towards the center of the brisket during the cook, and now they're redistributing throughout the meat. Everything relaxes. Everything settles. Skip the rest, and all that moisture ends up on the cutting board. Do the rest right, and it stays inside the brisket where it belongs. That's the difference between a brisket that's juicy all the way through and one that looks dry the second you slice into it. This time I chose the oven. So in it goes, and we wait. 14 hours after that, brisket went on the smoker. It's time. When I peeled back the foil, the first thing I checked was the bark, and it looked better than I expected. Not good for an electric smoker, just good. The color was dark. The surface had the dry, firm texture you're looking for. And if I handed this brisket to someone without telling them how it was cooked, I generally don't think that most people would have guessed that it was cooked in an electric smoker. Now, let's talk about the smoke ring, because this is something people bring up constantly. The smoke ring on this brisket is minimal. I'm gonna be straight with you about that. And people online will tell you that's proof electric smokers can't make real barbecue. Here's what those people get wrong. A smoke ring is a chemical reaction between the gases from the combustion and the myoglobin in the meat. It has nothing to do with smoke flavor. It's purely visual. Competition judges don't even score it. So the absence of a thick smoke ring doesn't mean anything about how this brisket tastes. It just means that the reaction that causes that pink ring worked differently in this electric smoker than it does in an offset. That's it. What actually matters is tenderness, bark, and smoke flavor. So let's talk about those. The flat slice clean, good bend, moisture visible on the cut, nothing dried out, the bark held up through the wrap, and the rest, which is the real test. A lot of cooks look great before the wrap and come out of it with bark that's gone, soft and pasty. This one didn't. The point is where things got really interesting. More fat, more flavor, more forgiveness. The point is usually the star of any brisket cook, and this one was no different. The fat was rendered completely, nothing waxy or chewy, and the bark on the point was arguably even better than the flat. Now for the taste test. The smoke flavor is there. It's not aggressive as you would get from a big offset smoker burning splits of oak all day long, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise, but it's present. It's balanced and it's not bitter. The flat was tender, the point was rich, and for a $62 select grade brisket from Walmart, the result was generally impressive. Is this the greatest brisket I've ever eaten? No. It's not, but it's good. And the real question here was whether a $300 electric smoker can make great brisket. After this cook right here, I don't think that's even a debate anymore. So here's my verdict. The bark surprised me. I expected it to be weaker than it was. The color, the texture, and the firmness, all better than I had anticipated going in. The smoke flavor is lighter than that of an offset. I'm not going to oversell that. If you've been cooking on a big stick burner for years, you'll notice the difference. But for most backyard cooks, it's more than enough. When you use this electric smoker, you're using it for convenience. That's where this smoker generally earns its price. I wasn't feeding logs. I wasn't adjusting vents. I wasn't setting alarms at 2 a.m. to check on a dying fire. I set the temperature, put the brisket in, and the smoker did what it was supposed to do all day long. That's a big deal if you have a job, a family, or a life outside barbecue. The trade-off is real. If we're talking about pure barbecue perfection, a well-run offset smoker still wins. The bark is going to be more aggressive. The smoke is deeper. The whole experience of cooking on fire is different. But most people, they don't have the time, the skills, or the setup for an offset. Most people have a backyard, a $300 smoker, and a Saturday afternoon. And for those people, this is a home run, because at the end of the day, nobody sits down at the table and says, this would have tasted so much better if you managed a fire all day. They take a bite, grab another slice, and ask for seconds. And that's the whole point. You want to make good food. So can you make a real brisket in a Masterbuilt electric smoker? After 14 hours and one very honest experiment, the answer is yes. No question about it. But here's something I didn't say at the start of this video. Brisket is actually one of the hardest things you can cook in a smoker. It's expensive. It takes all day. And if you get it wrong, you're out a significant chunk of money and a lot of your time. So if you're just getting started with your Masterbuilt electric smoker, I'd actually point you somewhere else for your first cook. The cook that surprised me the most when I started wasn't a brisket, it was chicken. The first time I made a whole smoked chicken in a Masterbuilt electric smoker, it came out so tender, I figured I'd just gotten lucky. So I ran it again with the same approach and I got the same result. If you want to see how I make a ridiculously tender whole chicken in this exact smoker, then check out this video right here. I'll walk you through the whole process step by step, and chicken is generally the perfect starting point before you commit a full day to a brisket. So click on that video right here and I'll see you over there. And don't forget, have a good one.